All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to session five of the Next Generation series, where we're going to be talking about how important it is to have a personal brand and why you should be having, why you should be working on yours. I think I put this in a lot of my LinkedIn posts over last week, over the last 2 weeks or something. Back in the day, and I remember this really, really distinctly. Back in the day, only CEOs of Fortune 500 companies had personal brands. I remember way before even Steve Jobs, we were talking about Jack Welch and all those guys from the 80s who had really, really strong personal brands, and everybody would know them as the face of the company, and they wouldn't know anybody else. And that's for the large part of that century. That's how things went, I suppose. Um, but I think things have changed right now. Right now, everybody needs a personal brand. It doesn't matter if you're a CEO of a small business, large business, if you're a vice president of a company, if you're employed, if you're even a junior level uh, worker, you definitely need a personal brand. And if you don't have one, you need to work on one. Having a brand, having a personal brand is key to your success in any career. But I'd say it's more than helpful if you're an entrepreneur. I have actually been the beneficiary of a good personal brand, and my story goes back to like 10, 11 years ago when I was. It starts with a sad story. I was made redundant way back in 2010, end of 2010, and because I was attached to an industry and a company for whom I was really, I think I was one of the top performers, which is why it was even worse that I got laid off. But it was all it was all because of the previous recession. And one of the things that I learned was everything that I had done. People knew me only because of the things that I had done for the previous company, because they knew that brand. They didn't know me. They hadn't heard of me. And when I went out and stepped into the world, into the other world, or the outside world, I say outside world because it was aviation, and aviation people seem to have their own little bubble. And when I went to stepped out to the outside world, I didn't really have a brand of my own. Apart from my CV, that's the only thing that I had. That's the only thing that I could give to people. Fast forward to today, I don't really need my CV as much. It doesn't matter if I'm doing, doing a job application, or applying, you trying to get some more business. I think people just Google me and they'll find bits and pieces. They'll find traces of me on YouTube, on Google, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and then they can just start piecing the story together. And that is just a small part of what we're going to discuss here. So, with that in mind, we brought in two of the very best personal branding people that I know on link on actually we met on LinkedIn. First off, I'm going to go with the hierarchy of our marketing material. So first off, we have Rosalia Lazzara. Rosalia is the founder and the CEO of the Content Hive and the Levici. And I think when we got around to talking last year, you just come off, off furlough, on the other side of the furlough, and you just in the process of setting up both your companies, Elvici and the Content Hive. And I've been following Rosalia's success over the last year or so, and she's been doing phenomenally well. The company is growing. The I think the content that she puts out is really, really interesting because it offers genuine value. It's not just your daily dose of motivation. Um, although I must admit, I do like the fitness tips from time to time. Um, yeah, so yes, Rosalia is really, really impressive, and she's done a really, really good job on her personal brand. So I figured she'd be great to have as a panelist, and she could share some of her insights on how she's built a very strong personal brand. And what's even better is it's aimed at a particular niche. It's not like I'm Rosalia and I help everyone. It's aimed at a particular niche. So we're going to get to that later. And then we also have Aarti Parmar. Aarti is somebody that I started following again on LinkedIn last year. Very, very interesting. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Aarti, but you started off in the in the design space, or in the branding and
Yeah,
design space, and
yeah,
then sort of
that's when
just
I started.
yeah,
My journey started as a graphic designer.
brilliant. And then moved on to sort of brand value, brand positioning, and more brand strategy right now.
Absolutely.
And I think you're close to 20 years experience working with solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, small businesses, both in the UK and abroad. And she believes that if a brand isn't clear on the inside, it's never going to be clear on the outside. I love that, actually. I think that's not just for brand. I think it's just for even generally
Yeah,
people.
your own
People just
identity,
yeah
right?
yeah yeah. Right. So thanks very much, guys, for agreeing to be a part of the session five next generation series. Great to have you on board. We're going to get straight into the meat and bones of this panel discussion. Now, I've told you what my interpretation of personal brand is, and I know I'm not an expert. I know I'm pretty good at it, but I'm not an expert. So, what would you say is your interpretation of personal brand? I'm going to start with Aarti.
Sure, thank you. So, firstly, yes, thank you, Barry, for having me here and inviting me on. I always love to share anything related to brand. So, thank you for this opportunity. So, yes, coming to personal brand, and it's very much actually, in the name itself, personal. So, you've got the word persona, and it's that persona that actually forms an identity, and it's that identity that actually consists of a person's characteristics, values, experiences, journeys, um, their expertise, their knowledge. So it's all a bit of everything that comes together that actually then forms this personal brand. So that's my sort of simplistic kind of take on it. I'll pass it over to Rosalia.
No, that was great.
Ros-
Yeah, completely agree with that, Artie. And yes, thank you, Barry, for having me also to even be sitting next to you and Artie is a really big milestone for me. So just a quick context that I'd like to explain about that is the very talented Artie here was actually a guest speaker and a coach when I was in the middle of furlough and considering starting a business. I joined a local group. What are they called, Artie? It's like a local community group
Santa.
or Santa,
Santa,
but
yes,
it's like
Santa Enterprise Agency, yeah.
yeah, it's an agency. It's a free agency for business startups in your area code, and so everyone should have one. Anyway, long story short, Artie was a guest speaker there, and considering I was trying to build a business about personal branding and content and social media, Artie being a guest speaker just felt so right at the time that she was, educating me on. Giving me that confidence that I needed actually to launch. And then a whole year later, we haven't really been able to catch up much or speak much, but then we find out by surprise that we're both on the same webinar. So for me, it's a really big achievement, like a milestone that I am really happy about. So I'm happy to share the stage with you. Yeah, so going back to your question, Barry, about personal branding, a personal brand is a perception of you as an individual, not your logo, not your business, not your website. It's you as an individual. And you carry that everywhere you go. And but genuinely believe, how Artie says that the brand is from the inside. I believe that how you do anything is how you do everything, right? So personal branding means how others see you in the flesh, in the media, in your business. And I really like the saying, I don't know who to credit to, but there's a saying which is a personal brand is what people say about you when you leave the room. So having that in mind, how do you light up the room? Do you dim the room down? Do you excite people? Do you bore people? Do you add value? Do you try and walk into a room and take something? Like that is really important about your personal brand. That's what your personal brand is. Sometimes it can feel quite intangible. And so people think there's no value in having a personal brand, or what is a personal brand, because you can't always touch it. But it is a general feeling of how people see you, how they perceive you, what they think about you. So yeah, that would be my explanation from everything, how you walk, talk, dress. Yeah, all of it.
Interesting. I wasn't aware of that story actually.
Yeah. Oh,
So
really?
it is. So it is like it's a full circle moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
Personal
And
brand
both
is made up of lots of lovely little stories, actually.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's true. People
Yeah.
ones that people actually can remember you by.
Yeah. Exactly.
Great, yeah, and both great sort of breakdowns into what a personal brand is. So the next follow up question is why. So I get this question a lot, right? Because and we see this very blatantly, whether it is on LinkedIn or any other platform where people they're not really comfortable with sort of telling the world who they are and what they do. They just want to grab the business, so to speak. What is the significance and what is the importance of having a really strong personal brand? Why do you think one should really work on their personal brand?
Do you want to go, Rosalia, or should I?
Yeah. Well, I think for me personally, it's been a lifesaver. Having a personal brand is the difference between losing a job that you loved in the middle of a pandemic, being in lockdown with no backup plan, and starting a business from scratch. Like, how can you build something if no one knows about you, if no one knows who you are? And that's what helped me come out of lockdown or survive and thrive through the pandemic, because that's exactly what I've done, is built two businesses in the middle of lockdown from home, when I couldn't get business cards, I couldn't get headshots, I couldn't get anything done. I had to just do everything in the house, on my own. And I've had jobs where a personal brand didn't matter at all, and others where a personal brand really did matter. So, just to give you an example, as a teen, in between school and university, I had lots of different jobs. And where a personal brand didn't matter is where perhaps I was like a temp in a call center. I worked anything from like a borough council, like taking, complaints in, to marketing or sales. And it didn't really matter. I was just a number. Someone would call in. Maybe your internal brand definitely did matter with if you were going to stick it out. Obviously, I was just a temp, so I was just, But what didn't matter is to do the job thoroughly enough that I would get a good, testimonial off the back of it, or reference. And then where I did do jobs where the personal brand really mattered was everything from recruitment to sales in events, and also, and as random as it may sound, even when I was a hair sweeper in a hair salon, my personal brand mattered, because all of that, Aarti said, it's lots of little things that make up a brand. Everybody in the salon needed to look a certain way, or everyone had a uniform. So my personal brand there, how I greeted people coming in, even though I was just sweeping the hair, it was the whole experience in between their haircut and blow dry, how they were handled. So today, when I entered financial services, the reason personal branding for me saved my career when I thought it was over, because that's what you do think at the beginning. When you get made redundant, you just do think it's over. But if you flip that on its head, it could be the beginning of everything you've ever wanted. So when I got into financial services about 7 years ago, no one knew me. Like, literally nobody knew my name. I didn't even know financial services. I didn't even have a mortgage at the time, but I was supposed to sell them. And so I just had nothing in the industry. It was just starting out completely from scratch. And whilst I was learning fast and failing fast, the biggest thing I was doing was cultivating relationships and always sticking to my word, like always putting that integrity and the values that I had as my brand at the forefront, because your job might change, but you won't. Your brand or the company you work for might change, but you are still the same. So you have to take that everywhere you go. Hence, I was able to just rise after feeling like I was at my lowest, no job, no employer, nothing. So for personal brand saved me, saved my career.
Yeah, good one. It was exactly what I was referencing earlier, about 11 years ago when I was made redundant. It's exactly the same thing. But the only difference was I didn't have a personal brand to fall back on. So it was literally me starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aarti?
Again, that just evidences such a array of different kind of characteristics and strengths that you have, Rosalia, just within that story itself. So, gosh, it's really powerful to have a personal brand and, understand yourself, where you've come from, where you are today, and, sort of bridging somewhat, understanding those little points that have made you who you are today. So similarly to yourself, Rosalia, so when I started my business 6 years ago, I always knew I was going to be leading with my personal brand. It was about Aarti Parmar. It was about being the expert within the industry that I'm in, and that's what I wanted to build up to and be seen as and be known for. And that actually came about when I was actually running a creative agency in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur. And I kind of got my first taste of networking out there. And it was actually with BNI, and I'm sure a lot of people know BNI. And one, I just absolutely loved that philosophy of givers gain. And two, another mentor of mine, whilst I was out there, he always used to say, people need people, and people connect with people. And is that connection with people, regardless of what you are doing, whether you're working in an organization, whether you're running a business, people need people, and people will connect with people. The person behind the brand, that's who they are actually buying into. That's who they are building a meaningful connection with. That's who they are you know finding that sort of trust, that credibility. So all of those different learnings that I've had from there, I then brought it into my business when I started 6 years ago. And for me, had I not sort of built led with personal brand, I don't think I would have had the opportunities that I would have had up until till to date. So networking, for example, has been massive in that, in building that personal brand. So in terms of why is it important, there's a whole reel of different reasons. From creating something that people connect with. It's showing that credibility. It opens doors, opens new opportunities and stuff like that. And
I totally agree.
it proves your value and worth as well. Very, very
Agreed. Yeah.
That's true. In a lot of ways, it's very similar. I mean, logic would say it's very similar to developing a brand for a business, for an organization, right? Except people's approach. People don't have that same approach. They don't apply it because they think, oh, there's got to be a differentiation. And we're going to get to that in the next question. Uh, because one of the things that I've noticed a lot is when people start building connections, and I guess it differs from whether you're in a B2B environment or B2C environment, but mainly in B2B, there is that hope that you want to build some kind of a relationship before you start pitching a product or service. But a lot of people don't really understand the fundamentals of it, right? Like, the biggest proof could be post, when COVID just hit last year. LinkedIn, for instance, had a huge spike in the number of new signups, and everybody thought this was their ticket to sales. They would just join and then start spamming people. And I noticed this is a trend, specifically in I think in April, May, right up to June and July. And the people that were really persistent, and the people that really got and understood the strategy behind what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do on LinkedIn, they're the ones that moved ahead. And a lot of the first movers back then, the people that just came in thinking, oh, this is going to be a big sales opportunity, they realized that they can't just spam people and get sales. And I think they either quit, well, most of those people quit, or a few of them decided to change strategy. But going back to, like, when it's a brand, and when it's you as a person working for a brand, let's assume that you work in a relatively large company. How does one go about differentiating between your organizational goals versus your own personal goals without sort of messing it up, without sending the wrong message to people, without pissing off your bosses? Because at the end of the day, you still work for that organization, so you want to be seen as the model employee. But at the same time, you want to be known as the guy or the girl to go to for your niche, or your industry. How would you handle that, Arti?
Yeah, I think firstly it's about understanding what is it that you want to be known for, and what do you want to, why do you want to be the go-to person, and what is it that you want people to come to you for. So having that understanding will then help to then sort of think, right, okay, what do I need to do more of so I can be that go-to person? Well, how do I need to demonstrate this? What do I need to be saying? What can I be putting myself forward for? So having that absolute clarity of actually what do I want to achieve in this organization? How do I want people to actually view me, see me, value me for? What do I, actually want here? Because having that and just maybe listing these things out, and then going into, right, how do I now actually bring this to life? Who do I need to become? What do I need to do? What do I need to be sharing? And so that will then have a more of a knock-on effect into creating that, coming back to that, persona that you want to be seen as in front of these people, whether different management levels or to your peers and stuff like that.
Totally.
Okay. But then how would you also align those? How would you align those with the branding initiatives of the organization that you work with? Because a lot of times, I've seen a lot of people clash. Maybe not so much in the really really big organizations, because they have a clear cut sort of, because I've been a part of, let's say I've been a part of an organization that was really huge. It is really huge, 20,000 plus employees, and they sort of, in a lot of ways, they don't really. It's not like they have a manual on personal branding, but they do tell you these are the things that you can and cannot do when you talk about our brand, right? So, and unless of course you're in a PR or a front facing role where you actually represent the company, which most of us aren't, how would you recommend they sort of balance the two, your brand versus the company's brand?
Is that for me
Well,
or was that, yeah, thanks.
I don't know. The thing is, I've had experience recently of exactly that, because I have been employed recently, and I was having to wear a different hat, and I was having to wear their label and their logo all over my LinkedIn, because that's what your employer wants you to do, right? They want you to wear their banner, your experience section, and most people wear or use rather LinkedIn as an online CV, as a virtual CV, and you kind of have to do that a little bit when you're employed, because naturally you're just showing, if you're trying to get a job or move up your career, and that's okay, you can still have a personal brand and be employed. You absolutely can, because that personal brand that you've built in the previous employer will stand you in good stead with your next employer. So I think the most important thing to exactly taking, just jumping from what Artie's just said about knowing who you want to represent, I see it as only a benefit for that firm that you have an excellent name for yourself. So if we just call it that, right, so that you have a really good name for yourself, because whilst you are getting traction and getting the attention on social media and networking, and you're well recognized, that company you work for is benefiting from it, with you all
True.
doing all the work. So this is how what I found in my previous firm, and actually I don't know if they're, because as you know, my niche is financial services, or I don't know if you know, but yeah, my niche is financial services. So I've been putting this out on LinkedIn for my network to come and look. So it could be my ex-employer could even be watching this, and what they'll know, so that I won't mention the name, but there was my boss's boss who once said to me, even before we knew what COVID was, or before we knew that redundancy was about to happen, because I was really active on LinkedIn, wearing their name, wearing their logo, their badge. He said, "You're building a personal brand here." In a good way, said it with a smile. He wasn't saying you're in trouble. He was like, "You're building a good brand here." And then he said, "And I'm really glad you're doing it under our name, because only they can benefit from it," right? So he was happy. And actually,
Yeah.
in our team meetings, he would say, "Can you please just share with the rest of the BDMs or the rest of the team how they can utilize LinkedIn a bit more, how they can just get themselves out there a bit more?" And I think if you don't know what you want to be, let's say you don't know what your future business is going to look like, because I didn't. I knew one day I wanted my own business, but it didn't quite take shape because I was too busy being in my job. But if you don't know what you want to be a storyteller, because I genuinely believe that facts tell, stories sell. So
True.
if the current story you're telling is your employer's story, be it a drinks company, a beauty company, or an accountancy practice, whatever it is, just be an excellent leader, communicator, storyteller. Show how much fun you're having, show how great it is, rather than just telling people that you guys are the best. Because what is not authentic is saying we're the best accountancy practice ever, and then you move to another company, you're like, no, we're the best accountancy practice. So
Yeah,
people
that
will
doesn't
believe
really you do your
less.
personal brand justice.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't want to just promote the product or the service. You want to promote how great you are at doing your job, because then that headhunter, when they come and when they if they want to hire the next if they want to hire strategically, they will hire the person that is most liked, most well known, and can learn the tricks and the skills. But actually you can't really teach personality, you can't teach having a network, right? You've got to build that over time. So just make it your mission, whether you are employed or a business, to just be good at what you do, and tell the story.
I like that. I like that. And I know exactly what you mean, because I know some people who are, who run or manage teams and whatever, and they, up until recently, pre-COVID, they had a problem with with their employees spending that much time doing their personal brand. And then, when I used to speak to some of them, I used to say, listen, this is, yeah, it is benefiting you as the individual, but it's also benefiting the organization that you work for, because any traction that you get, any eyes, ears and eyeballs that you can get to you as a brand in itself, you're eventually going to get people to notice your employer, and they're going to be able to benefit. The key is to be able to use that strategically, because I know a lot of people just getting lots of traction on their LinkedIn, for instance, but they just do, all they do is motivational content,
Mm,
and what they do in real life has nothing to do with motivation. They're an accountant, for instance, or a CFO that does a lot of motivation, for instance. So yeah, you've got to have sort of like, like how you're doing marketing buyer personas. You have to have sort of a persona for yourself and figure out
yes.
who you want to target, and then build your content and your personality around that content.
Absolutely. And in an ideal kind of world as well, when an organization is putting out, jobs for the organization and stuff, um, they should be talking about their purpose, their values, and all of these kind of things, the vision that they are working towards. So then, ideally, the people who are resonating and they are attracting are already excited about that purpose, that vision, those values. So then it feels much more of a right fit. So then when they do come into the organization, and the organization is saying, look, this is what we're about, this is how we want to portray ourselves, this is what we want to be known for, and how can you, in your own voice, because the other thing is, you don't want as an organization to be forcing people to say things that doesn't
Mm,
align with them.
With
So
their own
if
personal
you're
brand.
attracting the people that are excited about these vision and values and purpose, it's going to be a lot more easier, to show up, whether it's online or to go and deliver a talk, and but do it in that their own, because everyone, you say, have got their own personal brand. So you have to make it feel comfortable for them to be able to go and represent your brand, because it means something to them as well.
Yeah, that's true.
absolutely.
What would you recommend, employers, or organizations, business people that are in recruiting roles, people that are managing teams, what would you recommend to them when it comes to their staff, their employee? Because I'll give you a very quick example. So I'm going to name names here, but I know somebody that runs an organization, their own, it's a small business, doing really well, small business, maybe 10, 15 employees. The founder is not really that active on LinkedIn, but they've got one member of staff who's really super active on LinkedIn, gets a lot of traction for their content and stuff. And I think if they can sort of leverage, and we've had this conversation once or twice before, if they can leverage, if this guy can leverage his personal brand, sort of reposition it, and then showcase the benefits of associating with his employer's product, they can do really well. But I'm not sure whether they've had that, whether he and his boss have had that conversation, or if they've not had it, then I guess they should have it. But if they've had it, I wonder why they're not doing it. Perhaps it's fear, or just they're just too blasé about it. They don't think it works, because if it's fear, the fear could be, oh well, this guy, he's getting to learn the delicate intricacies of my business. Maybe he's going to take this someday and then start his own thing and then steal my customers. That's one of the things that some of the people I speak with have a problem with. Like, oh, you're building this. Oh, and by the way, because and the other problem is, because most of this happens during working hours. They're like, oh, you're spending time that I pay you to develop your personal brand, where you're going to be benefiting and I'm not. that could be one of the ways to think. What do you guys think?
I think
Uh,
I'm sure Artie would agree. It's just misalignment of values there. I think firstly, do you want to work in an organization that doesn't let you be who you are and wants to stunt your growth and wants to, take you on it? I mean, yes, there's got to be guidelines like, no conflict of interest. You're not on LinkedIn promoting a competitor or
right.
promoting your own business that is also kind of aligned to your existing employer. You don't want to do things like that. Of course, you've got to play fair. But like I said, if you're sharing the story of how you're doing your job, where you're currently at, there is no detriment to anybody's personal brand or anybody's business because you're only promoting that. And do you know how hard it is to find good people, like really good people who are passionate, enthusiastic, and really motivated to sing your praises and to scream your name? So I'd love for someone to wear the badge of the Content Hive with honor. And this is, even though I've built a personal brand, this is why I chose to have a company name, because I didn't want someone to be like, oh, hi, I'm calling from Rosalia Lazzara Limited. I wanted them, because it's about storytelling, I wanted them to
Yeah,
be able to use that logo and build their own story and their own following and traction. So I just think it's a misalignment of values. If you, as an employer, you can't actually dictate what people put on their social media, really. And you can dictate it from a company protection point of view and say, you're not allowed to say this about our company or say that. But if someone wants to post about their luxury car, the passion of luxury cars, I'm trying to think of something really random. But if they work for an accountant and they love luxury cars, then I don't see why they can't post certain things, as long as you're not obviously detrimenting the company that you're working for.
that's true. Whether it is good or bad, that's a totally different question. But yeah, in terms of having control over what your employees post on their social feeds or any other platforms, I think yeah, that
Yeah,
there should be some kind of line drawn.
it's got to be
Yeah, and
compliant. I mean, I
it,
work in a compliant industry. So financial services is very strict about what you can and cannot post. And back to your point about fear, most people would just do nothing because they're afraid of getting it wrong and they're afraid of getting into trouble. So they're like, oh no, I won't do anything because, it might not be compliant. So they end up just doing nothing with it and blaming, making excuses saying, oh, but this is not allowed and this is not allowed. And then I have to come in and say, well, but what is allowed? Let's do what can be posted. Let's do what can be said, and just start from there.
yeah, exactly. And I was just going to add on to that in terms of taking a step back before you even approach social media, having a meeting with the team and sort of saying, look, this is, and this comes back down to who are you as a brand, and then sort of saying, look, this is how we would like to portray ourselves. This is how we do want to be perceived. These are the kind of, I don't know, content pillars, or these are our values. So it's these kind of things we don't mind you talking about and sharing, whether it's even in your own personal experience, because that does align with what we are about as well. So I think it's a bit of communication there, rather than sort of fearing it and stuff. Actually put it out on the table. Let people know that this is what we are happy being communicated about us, and this is what we're not happy about. Having just open conversations, and but that obviously must come from that true understanding of what the brand is first and foremost.
Brilliant, love
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
So, what would you think? What would you recommend? How would you recommend people start working on their personal brand? And I'm going to break that down into two questions actually. First is how would you recommend a fresher, someone who's just got out of university? How would you recommend they start working on their personal brand? That's number one. And the other question is, um, people that are already in jobs or running businesses and stuff. How should they apply a framework? Would you break that down further into the technical part of your personal brand and the more strategic side of your brand? Where would you start, Arti?
Really, really good question. Because it's interesting, because like I'm trying to think, when I came out of uni, I didn't didn't think about personal brand or anything like that, and do you know what? I guess it's been around for years and years and years, but now it's been given a name. Well,
A
we've
name, right?
always been personal brands, as we've been growing up and all of those kind of things. And, that is, like I say, what forms in terms of who we are today. So I guess, for a young, person coming out of uni, again, coming back to that clarity, what am I working towards? What do I want to be known for? Doing a bit of research, that we have role models around us now and we have much more access to people. What is it that you like about them? Is that, who would you like to become? And taking inspiration from so easily now digitally connected. What works well for you? But, for me, it's very much about, and where we're sort of it sort of had it was game changer for me, was actually really connected to my own purpose, my own why, which now dictates everything that I do and how I show up and how my communication is done and all of those kind of things. But when you're at uni and you've just come out, I didn't have, right, let me go and find my absolute purpose. You're thinking about, right, what can I do? And, for me, it was very much around ambitions that I had. So I think, maybe visiting those ambitions, coming back to, what is it that I want to achieve in life? And then working back from there and sort of really sort of exploring, when you're young, it is very much about exploring and learning and,
And experimenting.
yeah, exactly. How about you, Rosalia?
Oh yeah, I totally agree with Aarti with regards to coming out of uni and just being like, what next? Like, what on earth happens now? So I think today's graduate is so different to even me as a graduate. Just I don't know, what year did I graduate? 2012. So it's not that long ago, but it's still long ago enough to know that actually when I graduated, I wasn't thinking about my future as myself as a personal brand. Okay. So, and now that you are aware of that, if you are a modern day graduate and you understand about personal branding and the power of social media and such things, still try to maintain a level of curiosity and like that you are thirsty for more education. Like I think sometimes there could be a risk of coming out of university feeling like you are ready to take on the world and you know everything and you're ready, you're like so educated, but actually let the brand come to you through experience in the workplace, because the branding is always evolving. You're not born a product, you are born a type of product, but you end up changing, your values change. Who I wanted to be, if I make it more personal, when I came out of university, I wanted to be like in languages like linguistics and translation and teaching, and that's what I started. So I went into that, and then I just took the first job that was the best first job that was available, and landed in recruitment, and then realized that actually I was really good at sales and relationships and business development and business. I realized I was good at business, but that was so far away from teaching. But then what I then realized is that with all the jobs that I had, the common thread was always value and education. It was always about empowering people, whether it was in the classroom or in business. I noticed that's how the brand developed. It was about, I want to impart knowledge, impart my knowledge on people and share my knowledge and educate them and help them take their knowledge to the next level. So as a teacher, I used to help students take their knowledge to the next level with Spanish or Italian. As now a consultant or as a sales trainer and content manager, I help people fine tune and tweak their content. So it might be good, but how can we get it even better? Your brand is great, but how can we really tell a story online and take it to the next level? So just be open to exploring what you're good at. Everything you were good at university may not be everything that you're good at in 10 years time. And you might learn new skills, and that will shape the new you.
And
And I
yeah,
think
I
also,
think
understanding what excites you,
Yeah.
what drives you, what makes you tick, and identifying those things when you're doing things. There'll be things that you absolutely hate, and there'll be things that you absolutely love, and you jump out of bed for, and it really does tick a lot of boxes. So, really observing those things, because, that starts to build up, what you want to do and how you want to spend your life. And, there is, things as well out there in the sense that actually, what would I like to see changed in the world? What kind of problems are there? What, can I be part of that solution? And, looking at it from that perspective as well, and being part of, a bigger solution, and what excites you about that can also be a good way to find it.
I was just thinking, based on what the both of you have just said, I think the book Start with Why, which pretty
Oh,
much everyone's read, I'm sure, and if you haven't, you have to absolutely read it. I think it can resonate with, even specifically with regards to your personal brand. I mean, it's good for businesses to know their why, but it's also good to know as an individual what your why is, because like the both of you said, when you're in college and when you're doing the thing and you think, oh, I'm going to be, I don't know, whatever, like a scientist or an engineer or a doctor or this, banker or
yeah,
or a YouTuber, and then you graduate and you're like, okay, you know what? It's a bit different out here in the real world. Like now I need to sort of create my framework for life. And if you don't know your why, then you're just sort of, you're kind of going with the flow. You're just going with the status quo, and that sort of can be a hindrance when it comes to developing your personal brand, because I believe part of personal brand is also sort of standing out from the crowd, or standing out in the crowd. People should be able to see you as somebody different. They say all human beings are different, just like everybody else, and that's like a play on words, but it's so true, because we're all different, but you need to make people understand why. What is it about you that makes you different from the rest? Why should they, whatever the end goal is, why should they be your friend? Why should they give you business? Why should they hire you? And that all revolves around your why, and then your why meeting their why. It's just this big question, why? And it makes so much sense. I mean, it's just one simple question, but it has so many answers that you could throw around in different directions. um
absolutely.
so we have some questions. I'm gonna, oh, hang on a second. This one, I think we've kind of addressed this one. It's from Harshil Rawal. I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, but if you could give some insights on collaboration of business and personal brand, how could it go in parallel? I think we kind of answered that question, but if you want to break that down even further,
Do
let
you
me
think,
let me actually show it on stage. So there it is. It's right on stage. Give you some more context.
I read that as maybe two businesses like me and Aarti, for example, collaborating rather than employee and personal brand. Am I correct? Harshal, I don't know if
Or
you're
you
able
can
to respond, but
just
okay.
put a yes in the chat if you're here, Harshal.
Yeah, so I guess we've already addressed the question of how to create a personal brand when you're employed. Um, but if you want us to answer the question of two businesses collaborating, so two separate personal brands collaborating, perhaps, is that what you need to know?
Let me see the
Should we
chat
just answer
here.
that one anyway, Artie?
Yeah, well, there's nothing in the chat, so I'm just gonna assume, yeah, that was,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what do you think, Artie? If
Yeah.
you and I
Oh,
were to
sorry.
collaborate, oh,
Harsha says, could you please come again? If you could give some insights on collaboration of business and personal brand. All right. Sorry. What was the question again, Rosalia?
I mean, it depends how you read it. So do you want to know building a personal brand when you're an employee, or how to build a personal brand alongside someone else's personal brand as a business? So two businesses collaborating.
I think it's the first instance. I think
That's,
it's a collaboration of a business and personal brand. How could it go in parallel? I think we've kind of addressed this
yeah,
question earlier. Yeah. You just
I
have to
mean,
make
that is
sure
absolutely
yeah.
that
Sorry.
is
Go ahead.
absolutely a fantastic way to build personal brand. When you do collaborations or strategic partnerships, because you are showcasing different strengths in that sense. I mean, this conversation here is it's a collaboration of different expertise coming together and, us showcasing some of our knowledge. So this here is a great example of it in itself.
I
Actually, yeah,
think it's also,
I didn't
you're
realize
not
that.
actually, sorry, Barry, there was a crossover.
Yeah, go ahead, Rosa.
So the way I without even knowing it, right, your personal brand is building whether you are proactively working on it or not. Okay. So if you're an employee and you've been asked to do a keynote speech, or you've been asked to do a presentation or a webinar, that however you present yourself on that, okay, without even knowing that you're building a personal brand, you already are building a personal brand. So whether you're proactively trying to do it or not, it's always happening. So that's what I was trying to say. When I was an employee, I wasn't thinking about the pandemic and what I would do without a job and my future business. I was just always conducting myself in the best possible light. I always just wanted to be the best version of myself in that job, and just always be that 1% better each day, so that whenever I did do a presentation, whenever I did post on social media, indirectly that was affecting the future personal brand of mine, because I was just living the brand. Does that make sense? I was just being myself. So
Yeah,
I think when Aarti was saying go back and write down who do you want to be, etc., I don't think you're supposed to make something up and try and act like something that you're not. I think what we're trying to say is try and put into words who you are and what you think you're about and what values you support and what your beliefs are. And how can you then demonstrate that? So if you are about, if you are humanitarian, if you're a very humanitarian, then maybe you want to post about world projects and the environment and your charitable causes. Now, you could be an employee in a retail store, but selling fast fashion, which doesn't quite align with your, responsibly eco-friendly. So maybe you might want to change your job. Maybe you actually, if you're really aligned to eco-friendliness and you're in fast fashion, then go to a Japanese store and sell, really minimalist style clothing. And that is how you can strengthen your brand, because then you've got the experience and the know-how. And then in the future, if you ever wanted to launch your own brand and business, then you've got that CV and that experience behind you to say, well, I've worked for this store, that's environmentally friendly, etc. So that's just as an example to say how your personal brand could just be evolving in your business or in your company without even knowing it. You just are naturally aligned to that message.
actually, yeah, that makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. So Harshal is okay. So I think Harshal wants to elaborate on this. Let me see how this looks. Is there any chance I can? Let me see if I can add you onto the stage, Harshal. Um, hang on a second. All right, I'm gonna while I figure that out. Let me answer another question here. We've got one from Alexandra. Says this one's addressed to Rosalia. Rosalia, did you ever have a certain concept according to which you built the personal brand, like a strategy?
Yeah, thank you for your question. So yes,
There you go.
originally,
I'm
okay,
stages.
so the concept of building a personal brand was not something that I was doing on purpose. I entered the world of financial services, okay, and I didn't know anybody, nobody knew me. And very quickly, like I said before, there's some jobs that require you to have a name for yourself and really be well known, and others don't. In financial services, you do really need to have a name, because it's about relationships. It's about going that extra mile for people, and it's such a small industry. People come back around, so you want to make a lasting impression and a good impression from day one, because you're going to be remembered. right? And if you're not remembered, then that is actually, so I used to be, just for context, I used to be a business development manager. So I needed my phone to ring. I needed advisors, IFAs to ring me with an actual case to hand over to the lender that I was working for. And if my phone wasn't ringing, business wasn't coming in. So that is where I had to make it my conscious mission. As you say, did you have a concept? Did you have a strategy? Yes, I had to build a personal brand then, because I needed people to say, do you know what? I'm going to ring Rosalia. Rosalia can sort this. Rosalia will sort this out. And so when I used to go to events, and when I had to give like presentations or keynote speeches, or even just small round table events where I was just speaking one-on-one to people, I would give it's not about what you say, it's how you make them feel. So I used to help people feel like they could call me anytime. I was available, I'm approachable, I'm personable, I'm contactable. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I care just as much about your business as you do. So that is my personal brand message. Okay, that is how I put myself out there. And then the strategy was to keep doing the same with relationships. So prioritizing relationships, prioritizing people, prioritizing that their problem, they're ringing you because they don't want to go to bed that night with that problem on their plate. Okay, so they
Right.
want to offload that problem. So I feel like being a problem solver can be a lot of people's personal brand. It relates to everybody. So that could be the angle that you take. And then when it came to the actual business, so when I walked away from employment and started my own business, then yeah, strategy galore. Let me just get a book that I can recommend is for anyone who wants to create a customer avatar and build a brand, build a value proposition. The two books that I would recommend is Value Proposition Design. That looks like that. So lots of lovely pictures, really nicely mapped out. Business Model Generation as well. So, designing your model. Now, a lot of this is very startup-y, very techy. So very useful for startups, obviously. Get a call in with Aarti. She designs like logos, brands, your brand message, and all of that. And then, just talk to people that are going to take you to that next level. So the strategy is not just what you need to do. The strategy is who do you need in your business. There's actually a book as well called I feel like a librarian. There is a book called Who Not How. I can't remember the author, but it's Who Not How. So just final point on your question, Alexandra, is who do you need in your business or in your personal brand to make it happen? You're not alone. You don't have to feel like you have to do everything yourself. You can find experts and professionals to help you get there.
Brilliant.
And just to add to that, a quote comes to mind: every interaction in any form is branding. So whether you're sending an email, whether you're meeting somebody for a one-to-one or on a Zoom call or attending a networking, it's about being conscious and mindful about how am I coming across today? What kind of seeds do I want to plant in people's mind about me so I am memorable, so people think of me in this particular way. As Rosalia mentioned earlier, there is that quote by Jeff Bezos: "Your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room." I like to take that a couple of steps back and say a brand is a created perception, and it is those perceptions that forms beliefs in people's mind about who you are, what you do, etc. So what you do need to think about, what kind of perceptions do I want to create in people's minds, so when they do leave the room, it's with the perception that you've created intentionally in their mind about who you are, what you do, what you can deliver, the transformation that you may be able to provide through your services, all of those different things that eventually draw people to you, or actually do draw people to you.
Right. Cool. All right. So I've got Harshal back. If he's still around, I'm gonna invite you on stage so you can break this question down. We've got just a few minutes left, so we got one more question, by the way. So we're gonna
Yeah.
invite Harshal. Harshal, if you're around, you got 10 seconds to accept my invitation and get on stage. Oh, there you go. Harshal could not join the stage. Will join the stage could not join the stage because your microphone isn't working. Sorry, Harsha, you have to enable your mic, I guess, because otherwise we won't hear you. Let me try that again. Okay, apparently, Harsha, you've got to enable Microsoft microphone permission. So I'm going to try one last time. The third invitation. Hopefully, third time's a charm.
Oh, it says my browser has locked it. Partial, so the browser he's using has locked the mic.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So I guess yeah, we'll try and get answers. There you go. I see it. Sorry about that. All right. So one last question. We're gonna go to. There you go. Show on the stage. I'm gonna get that out of the way, and we're gonna go to.
It's Matt McCullough.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are the three most important things to consider when a person begins to define their personal brand?
I put it in three very simple words: purpose, vision, values. Start there, and everything will start unfolding from there.
Yeah,
Right.
perfect. Yeah, totally. Really well summarized. But I guess what I would say is I think when it comes to personal brand, everyone wants to be a people pleaser. Do not try and please everybody. A personal brand is not just being liked by everyone. So I think a lot of people, especially around the TikTok era, does everyone remember that? Everyone was like, oh, I'll just do like the latest TikTok because that's going to help me go viral, or I'll do the one that's most popular. I really liked a saying, and I can't remember who said it, which was, if you try to be everyone's cup of tea, you're a mug. So I just love that, because I think in personal branding, top tip number one, in summary, I guess what I'm trying to say is polarization is good. If you want to be at one end of the spectrum and not the other, if you really have a strong belief about this and not another, then that is what you stick to. So personal brand is integrity, it's authenticity, it's sticking to what you absolutely feel is true to you. And then secondly, let your tribe come to you. You will be aligned with people who believe the same as what you believe. All right. So if you try and change your message, like I was saying, I think talking about eco-friendliness is a really good example, because what you don't want to be doing is posting about how you care about the environment and everything eco and everything environmentally friendly, and then you've posted about your kids' party with loads of plastic everywhere. Okay, that is misalignment. Okay, and we do it, and that's what personal branding is. So it's all the little things that you do that slip you by, that you don't even understand you're doing it. I guess something else is, let your personal brand find you. So if you're in the process, as your question implies, that you are in the process of beginning or defining your personal brand, sometimes what other people think you do or what other people think you're like is exactly what you are, right? Because the third party people can see something that you can't. So be inquisitive, ask people. When you look at my profile, like the biggest thing that I got from what people were saying when they would bump into me is like, what do you actually do? Because I get like just so much energy from your profile, and it's like really positive, and you seem to have lots of fingers and lots of pies. So the constant theme was energy, 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 positivity, vibes. So let other people show you what they see, and so ask around.
Yeah, and a really, really good exercise for that, so that anyone and everybody can do here as well is get onto your socials, and I know it can feel a bit like icky, like, oh gosh, asking other people how they perceive me. You can actually say, I was on Barry's why to invest in your personal brand talk, and we were asked to do this little exercise. So what three words would you describe? What three words would you use to describe me? So you can say it's like third, it comes across a little bit third party in that sense. If you don't want to go directly in with it, but I'm really curious to know. And you'll be amazed with the kind of things that people are saying. It is I can honestly say it's quite a nice feel good exercise as well. But also what it starts to help you to do is sort of filter and sort of say, right, actually I want to be known a bit more about positivity or energy, that kind of thing. How do I now start becoming more of that? Because people already are seeing me in that way. Or, there may be words there that you're like, oh, I didn't realise I was quite like that. How do I, and if that doesn't align with you, then how do you sort of reduce that? So it will give you a bit more insight as well. So that is a good place to start as well. And, it may even be just with your own colleagues or, your own sort of family and friends. And you do a few different ones, it doesn't have to be just one audience.
I like that. Sometimes it's as simple as just asking, right? A lot of people don't do that. You should just ask, I guess. Ask and you shall receive, as they say.
Yes.
That's brilliant. So I was gonna ask you guys to do the closing, but you guys have done it already. So if there's any more questions, what we're gonna do? Thanks both. So Matt says thanks. And so with that, we come to the end of session 5 in the Next Generation series, why you should be investing in your personal brand. We're going to send out recordings to everybody that attended and everybody that didn't as well, so they can catch what they missed. And we're also going to send you an email with a list of books recommended by both Roz and Aarti. So check your inboxes. Thanks very much, you guys. Thanks, Aarti. Thanks, Rosalia. And I'll catch you guys later on LinkedIn. And everybody else, thanks for checking out the Next Generation series. Brought to you by The Content Hive, Aarti Parmar, AP Brand Design. I feel like a television announcer. And Televiti and Bismodo. That's my brand, the television announcer. And I'll see you guys in the next session. Thank you. And
thank you, Barry.
Thank you. Cheers. Peace.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.
Bye.